Right, so if you have a Derech Hashem, we are up to, in the Name and Edition, page 196, which is Chelik Beis, Perik Beis, Ozayin 227. So today, God willing, we'll talk a little bit about Olam Haba. We've been talking about the past few weeks, Tzadik V'Ralo, Rasha V'Tovlo, that how certain people who are righteous may suffer in this world so that they get their reward in the next world. And we talked about many reasons, potential reasons why a righteous person might suffer in this world, and about that. So if you're interested in that topic, it's on YouTube. Last week's class. So, what is Olam Haba exactly? What is the next world? So the Ramchal says that Olam Haba again is that after this world that we're in now gets destroyed, after the year 6000, it's going to be recreated in a new existence, and that's where we are all going to get our reward from Hashem. And the reward is closeness from Hashem, and it's a reward that we earn in this world through doing mitzvahs, overcoming our Yetzer Hara, and doing what we're supposed to. So I came across something interesting from Rav Dessler. It's in Michto Melio, page 4, if you have it. It's Michto Melio. If it's in English too, it's in Strive for Truth. So he quotes the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. It says, "Yafeh sha'achas shel karas ruach be'olam haba mikol chay olam hazeh." So one moment of karas ruach, we'll explain what that is later, in the next world, in olam haba, is greater than everything, all the life in this world. So he says, what does this mean? You take it literally, that one moment, 1 second really, in the next world is greater than everything in this world. So he says, if you were to take all the pleasure and enjoyment and positive feelings that you had in your life up until now, and then you'll have for the rest of your life, and you put it into 1 second, and you add to that all of the pleasure that all of your friends and family have in their entire lives, and then you take all the pleasure of everyone in your city throughout their entire lives, and you add to that the pleasure that any human being who exists now had in their life, and you add to that all the pleasure that any human being who ever existed from the beginning of time that will exist to the end of time, he says, all of that, if you put it into 1 second, doesn't even get close to 1 second in Olam Haba, in the next world. And not only in the next world, but he said, what's karas ruach? What is that word, those words that are used in Pirkei Avos? So he said, karas ruach is like, if you're walking by a meal, you're walking by a restaurant, and there's a great smell, and you smell, and it's very enjoyable, the smell, but you're not actually in the restaurant. He says all of the pleasure that he described of every human being who ever existed, if you would put that all into 1 second, that isn't as great as 1 second of walking outside of Olam Haba and just getting that sniff of Olam Haba. And he says that, and that's the lowest level of Olam Haba for people who just make it in. And he writes that we see how great doing a small mitzvah is, because if you do a small mitzvah, whatever it is, you get into that lowest level of Olam Haba, of the next world. And that pleasure that a person has for that second is greater than all of the pleasures combined that any human had for all of human history. So it's a very, very powerful thing. And the pleasure it's not a physical pleasure, it's a spiritual pleasure of being close to Hashem. I know a rabbi who pointed out that in other religions they think that the next world, they describe the greatest pleasure as being all, physical pleasures. But that is not what Judaism preaches. The greatest pleasure is a spiritual pleasure. And while we have spiritual pleasures in this world, we're still in a physical body, which limits our capabilities, limits us in how much spirituality we can enjoy and connect to. But in Olam Haba, in the next world, we will have that ultimate spiritual pleasure and that reward. But again, it's very hard to describe exactly what that is because we are in a physical world. But Rav Dessler there is just giving a little example using the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos to explain how great it is. There's a joke that someone told me once. It's not funny at all, but it kind of brings out a point. I mean, I don't think it's funny. Maybe you'll think it's funny, but the joke it brings out a point. There was a guy who his entire life, he was a b'diavad Jew. He did all the mitzvahs. He did what he was supposed to do, but he did it on the lowest level. He didn't try to, he found loopholes in every single mitzvah that he could just do the bare minimum to, get away with it and do the right thing. It's b'diavad. He never went above and beyond to do the mitzvah the way it's supposed to be, but he followed. This opinion says it's okay. That opinion says it's okay. So after he dies, he's getting judged in the Bezdin Shambhala in the heavenly court, and they're looking through what he did. He said, well, technically you did everything, so we got to let you in. So an angel comes and he takes him and he shows him into a room. He says, here you go. It's a room. It's like 8 feet by 8 feet. There's a bed and there's like a little lamppost, and that's it. And he says, here's your Olam Haba. This is the next world. And he says, what? This is my Olam Haba? This is the next world? He said, yeah, according to some opinions. So it's a joke. It's not funny. But the idea is that there are different levels of Olam Haba in the next world. That's what I'm trying to bring out. And that's what we're going to be talking about today in Derech Hashem. We shouldn't... One might think that, if you pass a certain level, you get into Olam Haba and then it's all the same. We'll be hanging out with Moshe Rabbeinu exactly in the same level. But that is not how it works. So let's start with, see what the Ramchal has to say. V'amnam, od prat acher ikari ma'od yesh b'zeh inyan. V'hu, there is another important principle to discuss here. V'hu, ki hine b'kibbutz hashleimim shezacharnu, shi'eh la'asad lavo, the future that we'll have in Olam Haba, ein hakavana shi'ukulim madrega achas. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to be on the same level. V'yasigu hasaga achas, and we'll all reach the same place. Achadavarhu, rather, shehine shi'ar hachma al-yana ad heichan yachal hagia hakatze ha'achron perish. Hashem measured exactly where it's going to be, where the lowest point will be. Perish hashir hayoser pachos shebizdafkus bo yizbarach v'ha'ana b'shleimuso u'keneged zeh sidra shekol mi shemaisav yagiu lepachos el hashir hakatan hahu kvar yuchol limanos b'kibbutz hazeh shezacharnu v'yeh min hanish'arim lanitzchim leisaning bo. Hashem determined what the lowest level is that a person could get into Olam Haba, and he'll be at the lowest level of Olam Haba. But nevertheless, he made it, he got in, and he'll have an Olam Haba, an eternal Olam Haba of the next world, and his reward, but it's going to be on a very low level. Misha afilu lazeh lo yagia, someone who didn't even reach this point, he didn't even get into the lowest point of Olam Haba, the next world. Hine, he will be cast aside totally and lost. And whoever merits to have a greater level in Olam Haba, whoever did more mitzvos and deserves it more, he'll be on a higher level of Olam Haba. So you'll have people that won't get into Olam Haba at all, they'll be cast aside. You'll have people that just make it in, they'll be on the lowest level of Olam Haba, and everybody else will be, according to the level which they achieved, they will get on the level which they deserve. By the way, I didn't say at the beginning, if anyone has any questions or anything, please stop me and interrupt, or just text me if you're shy. Whatever works for you. Okay. And it was from Hashem's great wisdom, what he did. Man himself, each person himself, is the cause of what he cause for what he reaps. Meaning, through a person's efforts, he'll get exactly the reward that he deserves from his efforts. Perish. Shalo dai shalo yiskal atov ela achar she'esigu be'amalo ela afilu prada chelik shiutan lo liyeh ela kfi ma'asav bediktok. It's not enough that he's going to get goodness because he worked for it, but rather the exact level which he gets is based on exactly what he did. We mentioned earlier in the beginning of Derech Hashem that the reason Hashem created the world in the way he did, that we have to work for our reward, is because a person would be embarrassed if Hashem just gave him goodness without working for it. And also, we mentioned that to be close to Hashem, one has to be as similar as possible to Hashem. So when one works for it himself, he is someone who gets shleimus himself. He acquired that perfection for himself, and that causes him to be more as similar as possible to Hashem. So it's not just that a person passes the test and gets in, but even to the minute detail of his level in Olam Haba, that is earned based exactly on his actions. So while in this world, if something bad happens to us, we often blame others. We can say, it was my upbringing, this guy did it, I failed at this because of this and that, and this person was mean to me. But in Olam Haba, it's exactly what we deserve, based on exactly what we did. And down to the most specific detail. V'nimtza shelo yeh ha'adam b'madrega zulas ma shebachar v'sam hu atzmo es atzmo ba. And a person will only have the level that he himself put himself there. Ukfar yimatzu b'kibbutz hahu elyonim v'tachtonim. And in this gathering of Olam Haba, we'll have people on higher levels and people on lower levels. Gedol muktanim, great levels, low levels, great people and less great people. Avalo yeh lagova malas ha'adam v'shiflusa legadlo v'kadnusa siba acheres elahu atzmo. But a person will only have himself to blame. If a person's on a higher level, that's because he worked for it. If he's on a lower level, it's because he didn't work for it. And he won't have any complaints on anybody else but himself. Now this is something the Ramchal brings up in Mesilas Yesharim, and the ways to acquire zehirus of watchfulness. Watchfulness means a person tries his best to not violate any of the negative prohibitions in the Torah. And one of the ways the Ramchal tells a person to inspire himself to get to that level is through realizing, imagine how he's going to feel in Olam Haba, in the next world, if his friend is at a higher level than him. He'll be jealous. He said people in this world are jealous of stupid things, like that guy has a nicer house or a nicer car or a better job. Imagine how you'll feel when in Olam Haba, the Olam Ha'emes, where everything is true only based on your efforts, and your friend is at a higher level than you. It'll be very, very difficult, very painful for a person. So he actually uses this to inspire someone to be more careful in mitzvos. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, keep going. If anyone wants to leave at any time, that's also fine. No pressure to stay. But let's keep going because we're almost at the end of the chapter here. Okay, v'hine al pi hashor shazeh. Based on this principle, timatze od havchana gedola b'din ha'maisim. We find another differentiation between a person's deeds. Lishpor osam shiroi shetagia toldosam latet iloi la'adam b'kibbutz hashleimim shezacharnu. To give a person, based on the judgment of his deeds, like we mentioned, v'shir ha'iloi she'itnu, and based on the level which he'll get. He's going to explain. Ki kfar yimatzu ma'asim shekfiya mishpar ha'elyon ha'meduktak v'ha'yasher lo yagia latet la'adam iloi lazman ha'hu el yugmul ba'olam hazeh. There are certain deeds that a person does that he can get rewarded in this world. And because he got rewarded in this world, he'll be on a low level in Olam Haba. Since he was rewarded in this world for certain mitzvahs that he did, in the next world, he already got some of his reward, so he's going to be on a lower level. This is similar to what we mentioned earlier. That certain people, they get their schar in this world, they get the reward in this world, and they lose out totally in Olam Haba. We mentioned certain evil people, who most of their deeds are evil, but they've done a certain amount of good deeds, that they're not going to get Olam Haba, they're not going to merit to be in the next world. However, since they did a few mitzvos, they're going to be rewarded in this world for those mitzvahs, and all their reward gets used up. So they're totally cast aside from Olam Haba. Now, this group that he's speaking about now is similar. But there's a difference. Those that we mentioned before that were just completely evil. Those people, they're not going to get into Olam Haba, into the next world at all, because all of their merits were used up. However, these people, they are going to get Olam Haba. They're going to get eternity in the next world. Even if they need a lot of cleansing in Gehenna, which is something we've talked about earlier. Nevertheless, they have a portion in the eternal reward of Olam Haba. However, since they messed up their deeds, they've done things that were bad, they only get a lower level there. And many of their rewards they get in this world. So we're talking about people that they've done mitzvos, so they got the entrance ticket to get in the Olam Haba. However, many of their deeds were also bad. So they are on a lower level in the next world, and many of their rewards for the good deeds that they did are repaid in this world. And had it been that all the rewards are in the next world, they would have been on a much higher level in the next world. Everything that we've mentioned until now, we've explained why the righteous suffer ba'olam hazeh in this world, and why the evil people, why some of them have a easy life. We've explained spiritual punishments, and how it's all a preparation for repayment in the next world. But the reason why righteous people, so until now, a few classes ago, we've been explaining why some righteous people suffer, but we didn't explain why do certain righteous people have an easy life, right? Some righteous people have a hard life, some righteous people have an easy life. That is going to be explained later. And all of this is based on what we explained he mentioned at the beginning of this chapter that there are two ways that Hashem deals with people, the general way for all of humanity and the specific way. So he says that this was all according to the general way, how Hashem deals with people. However, the way Hashem deals with people in a private level, on an individual level, shown because it's different. And that we're going to explain in an upcoming chapter. Okay, so with that we finished chapter 2. Awesome. I see there's a question here. So someone asked why we daven for an easy life. I mean, we daven that we don't have tests because it's hard, right? It's hard to have a hard life. We might not succeed, and it's difficult. And if people have challenges in life, I assume we would rather not have challenges because it's much easier to be successful in serving Hashem if you're not faced with challenges. But we do find that some great people did daven that they have challenges in life because they wanted more reward. Right? Don't we say, I think, King David and Yaakov, and we see that sometimes they were successful, sometimes they weren't. So we definitely, daven to not have challenges in life so that we can better serve Hashem. Hope that answers. Any other questions or anything? All right, thanks for coming, and thanks for Leah for organizing, as always, and have a great evening.